was unusual. But since scientists had assumed the existence of a correlation between creation and ability on the part of the planets to generate themselves, a campaign had started, involving 4 nations and 1 continent. At the head of the delegation, 10 astronauts who reported to Matt Montgomery. It was thanks to him, his intuitions and new knowledge in the technological field, that the spaceman, so renamed by the world press and social media, understood that the rules of physics did not always obey the same criteria. The spaceship glided smoothly, sliding on the ice sheet for a couple of kilometers. The color of an ivory white dotted with red spots loomed on the horizon. Here's another oddity, thought Matt. What are those strange shapes doing trapped in the ice? He observed them from inside the spacecraft, and the inordinate curiosity to understand was already growing in him. But first, there were urgencies to view and check. KRTS planet. Surface area 625,094,172 square kilometers, of which 93% covered by water masses, while the remaining part, 7%, is made up of emerged land. Gravity force adjustment, 10%. KRTS planet. Breathing possible with 25% nitrogen correction. Planet KRST. Rotation around dwarf star K. 78 hours of light and 35 hours of darkness. Planet KRST. No presence of noise. Presence of agents such as wind and snow. Temperature 85 degree in the presence of light. Predicted night temperature minus 127 degree, to be redefined. Planet KRST. Reaching the planet using speed of light 20 Earth years. Stellar times review 18. Planet KRST. Presence of pathogenic elements not detected. We can go out for the first step out, said Matt, feeling excited like a child with his favorite toy in his hands and eager to finally open it. The vehicle began to move, touching the shiny sheet of semi-transparent ice, which made the atypical absence of noise evident. Something absolutely outside of any physical rule. The spaceship, in controlled stasis, was in the middle of a red blob floating under the layer of ice. From a superficial observation, they looked like patches made up of filaments. But before collecting elements from the territory of the planet KRST, a comparison between the scientists who were part of the mission was a must. The 10 devoted themselves to solving some technical issues related to communication with the spacecraft, while the experts who had been called to work in the field and collect artifacts conferred, professionally evaluating what could constitute desirable novelties. The meeting was about to address the focal points related to technical details, but everyone was eagerly awaiting Matt's contribution, who was the dreamer, the aesthete, the revolutionary of discovery. He looked around, searching for the right words. We're facing something unprecedented. There's no atmosphere on the moon, so there's no wind. But this phenomenon can't happen here and now because the composition of the atmosphere is similar to Earth's, and the physical rules are well established. Compared to the planets and moons we've visited, what most resembles KRST is Enceladus. To answer the question everyone is asking about the presence of life on other worlds, I would say that mathematical models of geochemistry and studies related to the presence of methane suggest that there might be microorganisms on planets like Enceladus. Life could nestle near hydrothermal vents similar to those in Earth's oceans, But if all the research, evidence, living as a space wanderer strikes me and excites me, then I smile and rejoice, because on a planet a few light years from Earth, all the knowledge of physics is thrown into crisis. And I announce, why not consider the possibility that the planets themselves choose their own potential world? The dreamer had spoken, and despite his thought being nothing short of pyrotechnic, why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Adapting is an annoying condition, and it is so for every living being. This is even more true when you bring together a group of scientists, very attentive, prepared, and professional, who ensure an efficient, but not always unambiguous response. Matt was a hybrid who combined technical knowledge with a propensity for freedom of thought. He took nothing for granted. He welcomed hypotheses, evaluated them, thought outside the box, was nicknamed the Dreamer, and was a leader. Untangling himself from the crowd of staff engrossed in hours of discussion, Matt approached Ben Larson, considered a luminary for his ability to probe every type of surface and uncover hidden aspects. He found him near the machinery, to which he was the only one to have access, used to detect any form of life, terrain configuration, and anomalies. Behind him lay a breathtaking view: mountains of ice, azure crevasses, white glaciers, and Mirabelle, his young girlfriend. The two exchanged sweet glances. You know, that mist enveloping the ice desert could be methane dispersed by microorganisms, as observed on Enceladus, she began, before being interrupted. All right, lovebirds, Matt said, cutting her off. I wonder why in this world, where icy winds blow, creating frequent tornadoes, there are no sounds. It defies physics. What does the spectrometer indicate? He asked. The planet appears to be mainly composed of standard elements. However, the probe is unable to determine the nature of a small portion of the mass, corresponding to 0.07% of the total, he replied, then glanced at the monitor and added, I've used the best available material, K5 metal, no margin of errors. Matt stopped to look through the glass. In the distance, frozen clouds wandered in the alien sky. What are you hiding? He thought to himself. A seismic jolt rippled through the ship, stirring a subdued rumble from the steel walls. Sir, Ben said after a moment, the material has redistributed itself. It seems to have approached the surface. The spacecraft's sirens began to wail, summoning everyone to a meeting to turn words into actions. Ben Larson took the lead, outlining the consistency and classification of the planet, which, despite some critical issues, appeared to be of the XJ-Crom type. Mirabelle had conducted an analysis and justified the presence of methane, particularly near the red pools, which she believed served as a reservoir for living cells. Maxell, Carlos, and Lisa had detected peculiar rhythmic movements emanating from the ocean depths. Owen and Clara had completed repairs on the electrical compartment, damaged by unusual electromagnetic interference. All the gathered data pointed towards the existence of a dynamic entity and inexplicable phenomena. Nonetheless, the source seemed to originate from the waters beneath the icy cap. After various analyses, it was decided to prepare 2 submarines of the sonar type, with suitable protection and shielding for defense. The chosen pilots were Anson and Tommy. The objective was to approach the source of all these strange events, estimated to be several tens of kilometers below sea level. The submarines broke the surface and plunged, gliding parallel on the viscous sea of shattered ice, which the screen easily repelled and eliminated. No living forms seemed to inhabit the world, which nonetheless had all the appearance of hosting life. There was a remote and visceral sensation of being observed. Suddenly, behind an upturned mountain, 2 bubbles emerged from the darkness. Matt scrutinized the vehicle's radar, but the spheres remained invisible to electronic equipment. "Go north," he tried to say, but the ethereal liquid fragmented into 1,000 pieces, enveloping the submarine. Everything went dark. Crackles and explosions were heard, and the air filled with sparks, turning the interiors of the ships into shimmering tin. Panic spread. Matt, fighting against his instinct to succumb to terror, ordered Universal Communication Code. The submarine emitted a faint sound, a cry for peace. The entity's embrace broke. The message was clear. There was no hostile intention, just a burning desire for understanding. Matt remained silent, holding his breath. Bubbles moved, enveloping the screens. A deep vibration shook the submarines, breaking any attempt at dialogue. The crew was thrown off balance. Matt felt his strength give way, his body surrendering and falling to the ground. "What's happening?" he tried to ask, but the words remained trapped in his throat. Suddenly, images surfaced in his mind. An immune system, determined to defend its territory from intrusions. He headed for the auxiliary navigation capsule, ordering the crew to activate emergency resurfacing. When they tried to object, Matt had already started the capsule's engine and detached from the submarine. The red liquid released its grip and surged toward him. Matt increased the power of the engines, plunging into the abyss, watching the submarines above him return to the surface and disappear into the darkness. In a series of turns and tight curves, he tried to evade his pursuers, plunging into the oblivion of the ocean. More bubbles appeared from the surrounding darkness. The adrenaline of escape mingled with the salty taste of his sweat. Within him, the ancient instinct of nature awakened. Prey and hunters danced in his thoughts. After endless minutes of descent, he found himself facing a red mantle, strange figures forming and vanishing on its surface. The bubbles were about to reach him. He had no choice but to breach the integrity of that essence and immerse himself in the crimson of its color. The warmth of absolute darkness accompanied his awakening. There was nothing to see, nothing to hear, only the absolute lack of physical sensations, pure mental processes. He tried to move, but there was nothing to move. It seemed like his body had become mist, dispersed in the wind of an infinite universe. Thoughts galloped toward uncertain goals. Had his companions managed to reach the surface? Where was he? What had happened to him? A voice reached him, seeming to come from everywhere and everyone. "Why have you returned?" Matt didn't understand. He tried to respond, but he felt he had nothing to say. I no longer remember how many times I've changed shape, how many times I've destroyed and rebuilt, but I remember your scent. I remember your taste. He felt affection making its way into his thoughts, an embrace enveloping his mind. Who are you? He managed to think. I am you, and you are me, or rather, a part of me. Matt remained in contemplative silence for a moment. How do you communicate? Asked the astronaut. In the same way you do. Although I must admit that this time the nature of your consciousness appears quite curious to me, matter and intellect combined. I notice that you've managed to contain yourself in a cluster of connections and impulses. I don't understand. I am a man. I was born on Earth 31 years ago. I am an astronaut. He paused, feeling something stirring within him, an awareness, a sensation of familiarity and repetition. Yes, this time you are an organism, evolved over billions of years. This time? I've never been here before. You're confusing me with someone else, responded Matt. The voice fell silent. We humans haven't come here to impose our dominion or exploit your resources. We just want to converse, cried Matt, but received no response. We want to know, to understand the universe and what inhabits it, he continued. The surreal void between the phrases seemed to stretch, as if centuries passed between one word and another. Entire universes could be born and die in a few moments. I just want to know, he concluded desperately. I know, Matt, the entity finally replied. I know you as I know myself. I know your desires, and I feel pain in not being able to fulfill them. But I can't allow you to continue in this direction. I don't want you to suffer. For a moment, they lingered there, in mutual anticipation. What am I? Matt asked. You are necessity. You are my need for answers, responded the entity. I don't understand. Please, help me. Who are you? He continued. In the distance, something began to take shape in front of him. A faint light he couldn't define. We must stop here, Matt. This is the end of your journey, said the entity. No, wait. I want to know what's happening. Why am I here? This place is not important. This planet is just an anomaly in the reality I've built, an irregularity in the rules of creation, due to my incomplete knowledge. Here reside my gaps, the place and time where what I don't understand exists. Let me pass then. I could help you understand, he said, trying to convince the being. Matt, your desire to see blinds you. Your thirst cannot be quenched. Let me make an attempt. Just one, insisted Matt. You've already made an attempt, Matt. You've made millions, perhaps billions. I lost count many universes ago. Every time you arrive, I design everything anew. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Because I want to know something I can't explain. Matt, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. The light began to fade, swallowed by darkness, strange patterns moving in the shadows. Stop these word games. Let me understand. If I truly am what you say, then you owe me. If this is what I am, let me through, cried the astronaut. A brief silence followed, filled with evanescent eternities. The light remained unstable, wavering in the darkness, then weakly grew stronger, beginning to approach again. Fine, Matt. Just one last time, then. He remained silent. In front of him stood everything he had ever wanted to know: the essence of art, the breath of creation, the reason for change. As they approached, the voice spoke again. Even this time, Matt, let me ask you the same question. The light drew closer, seeming to accelerate on their path. Millennia and infinite spaces brushed past them, traversing untraversable distances, nearing the end of everything, enclosed in the shell of a faint light. They stopped before what seemed to be a faint silver flame, dancing lightly in the darkness of oblivion. Tell me, Matt, what do you see in the light? Matt remained silent for a few seconds, observing. In his thoughts, he took a deep breath. I see myself. He felt an intense wave of awareness and understanding engulf him. I see myself, Matt repeated calmly, feeling the truth of those words resonate within him.